Hello, it's been a while, hasn't it? But I'm back to making and designing things. And you might be thinking, well, why has she got that there? We've already done that, we've already seen that before. This is just to show you that I decided to make a fall or autumn truck. And it's a variation on this one. But it has a few differences, and I'll show you all those as I go along. It does have wheels that actually move. It's a little bit shorter. The bed is different. I've incorporated a few changes, and but I'm not going to construct it from scratch every single piece, because we had a very long tutorial video for this one that tells you all the details, and it's very similar, but I will, I've partly constructed it, and I will show you the differences and what I've been using and everything else, and explain it to you. But first I'm going to take you into Design Space and show you all the parts of it. So that's what we're going to do, and I'll do that now. Okay, so here we are in Design Space, and I'm just going to show you what all the pieces are that make the truck. So we'll start up here. This is the bed of the truck, and that's all in Cricut 1.5mm chipboard, which you can now get a whole pack of it in craft colour, not just the damask kind. And the cab of the truck is made from, in my case, some black art board or presentation board that I got from my art shop, which is like fine, smooth matte board. If you can't get that, then you could use this chipboard here, because it's going to be covered anyway, or you could use black matte board, I should imagine, or you can get black chipboard from Amazon that would probably work for a simple sort of shape like this, but you need to cut that not with the knife blade on your maker, but with the deep cut blade, I believe. So then we have these pieces, which are slightly different looking black, so that they'll come up separately on the mat, and those are all Cricut kraftboard, because these are the pieces that bend round to make to go round the windshield and or windscreen, as we say in England if you're watching me from there, and the part that goes over the hood, which and those are scored so that they'll bend nicely as they go around there. These are all the, I don't know what you call those, fenders or wheel covers or whatever they are, and there's 6 of each of those, the narrower ones, and 1 each for each wheel of the slightly wider ones, and you'll see why as we go along. But basically, because I made it this time with wheels that do actually go round, I wanted to give a little bit more space, so I'll show you that when I'm making it. These are the bumpers and the grill that covers the radiator, and these are the wheels, of course, and the doors, which are also chipboard, and the hubcaps, or whatever you call those. I actually tried out my new engraving tool. Well, no, I did try my engraving tool out, but that was on here. This was the debossing tool, just to see how it looked, and I thought it looked pretty good. But if you don't have one of those, you don't need to do that. That was just an extra that I added. And in fact, on this notice that goes on the notice board that goes on the back of the truck, I used both debossing, which is where the black bit is, and engraving, just to see how it came out, and I rather liked it. The material that I used to do that on was Cricut's new neon holographic kraftboard, which has got a sort of metallic sheen to it in a way, and it shimmers. It isn't really very authentic to use for rounder windows and door handles and bumpers and wheel hubs, but it looked very autumn or fall, I thought, and it debossed very nicely, and I just thought it looked cute. These pieces here are the wood grain cardstock I used from my paper pad. If you just want to put them on the outside of the truck bed, you only need to cut these pieces here. If you want to put them on the inside as well, you ignore the door pieces and you cut all 4 pieces here. This piece is a slightly lighter colour so that it won't come out on your original mat if you don't want it to. These are just cardstock, and it's just craft cardstock, but I've put them a different colour so they show up. And they're the construction strips that you put everything together with. You may not find this the exact number or you need or the exact length, but you can cut them. And if I put every one for every place that you might need it, sometimes that just takes up a lot of space in here, and you can just cut them again if you need to. I didn't use black ones for the cab this time because I used a special sort of masking tape that I get from Amazon, which I'll show you later. But if you can't get that or don't want to use that, you could cut these strips out again in black, but bear in mind you'll need some with notches in them to go around this part, these parts here by the window and over the hood. And if you don't want to cut those by hand, there are some in the red truck pattern that you can find also a tutorial for on YouTube that I made earlier. These black strips are something a little different. They're again from the, in fact all these parts down here, which I should have told you, are Cricut's new kraftboard that's called Metals, I think, only these are black glossy. They're not really metallic at all, but they look very nice for the cab, to cover the cab. And those are the parts that go over the wheels, again, but I'm not sure what they're called. And these little thin pieces go over the top of those when you've joined all these together, and I'll show you when I'm constructing it. So these are pumpkins. There are 2 types. There's one that was a little pumpkin box, and I'll show you what that came out like, and some leaves to use with it. And these are little 3D pumpkins that are constructed in a different way, and I'll show you those as well. So that we'll come to that later. And this is the Scarecrow that I made, and I made him double. Although around the back I didn't make his eyes and his mouth, and I put an extra piece of the hand there to use at the back of him for hair, and I cut the main part of him out of kraftboard, and in fact I think I cut the inside a couple of extra times to make him stronger, or you could choose chipboard for that, and then the top parts are just all cardstock. I think I've shown you, there's some acetate here. I actually use packaging, which I'll show you later, so I didn't cut them out on this pattern, but if you have got some flat acetate that you can cut with your Cricut, there's the pattern for the windows. And these go behind the headlights and the tail lights, and I think that's everything. So we'll go back to the actual model, and I'll show you how we put it together. Okay, so I'm back again, and I'll just explain to you first of all about the bed of the truck. And I wanted it to look like a wooden sort of bed. I haven't made this truck red. I've seen a few fall trucks with pumpkins and things in them and they've been red, but I think it should be more of an autumny kind of colour. So this is the back of it, and I've already put these together with parts together with construction strips like I normally do, one on the inside and one on the outside of each of the joins. And I also made a sign I think you can see that. And I embossed it. No, I debossed it with the new debossing tool for the Maker. And I also did a little bit of engraving. I'm trying to put it so you can see it more clearly. And on the letters of the engraving, I put a little ink from probably, yes, I think it was this distress ink. I think I used black actually. This is the brown one. It's actually called walnut stain, that one. And afterwards, I used a Q-tip to wipe it on there. Then I sprayed it with a little water, and that made the letters raise up slightly because the card of the chipboard and paper, well, it's kraftboard, sort of soaked the paper and rose up slightly. I don't know if you can actually see that very well on camera, but it and I wiped off the excess ink. It just wipes off this. This is that Cricut kraftboard, the neon holographic, I think they call it. So it sort of looks orange basically, but it sort of changes colour a bit in the light. And I made 2 holes with my crocodile, and I put a little piece of string through it. And then I put what are those called? Those little fasteners. I made a little hole and put the fastener through, and I know it has a name that is common that has just escaped me at the moment. And I just hung it on the back like that. But I'll take it off now while we finish constructing this. So just to show you, and this is where the wheels are going to go, where the holes are. So I also used a bit of ink on the inside, the walnut stain again, the Tim Holtz walnut stain on the inside to distress it a bit and make it look a little sort of like an old truck. Now I did that so that if you don't want to, you don't need to put paper on the inside as well. I think I'm going to this time because I rather liked the wood effect that I used. But you could leave it. We're going to put some straw in the truck, and we're going to put pumpkins and a scarecrow. So you aren't going to see that much of the inside of the truck anyway when it's full up. And I also adhered on one side so far this piece of wood grained paper. That looks like this, and it came from this. Let me put this aside a second. This preserved papers that I actually found in Joann's, but you can find wood grain style paper all over the place. That was just the one I used, just in case you wanted to look for the same thing. And so the next part I'm going to put on is this part, which goes at this end, and I'm going to attach that with construction strips, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So just to recap, like we did on the other truck, piece that's the right length. I think yours are a better cut lengths than mine. I've adjusted yours so they're more like the proper size. I think this one's a little short, so I'll cut this down. And the easiest way to start with is to put it flat on the table to join up this side, and I'm cutting mine down to size. You'll probably find that the ones I've made for you are about the right size, but you can always cut them, and you can always make them by hand if you want to, if you need any more, or cut some more. So I'm using this glue today. I use a variety of glues actually. I use this one quite a lot for sort of finer work. I often just use Elaine's, is it? Tacky glue that you can get from Walmart and various places for larger areas, and sometimes I use Fabri-Tac or 3-in-1 especially where it might show through glue lines on materials like metallic cardstock, and sometimes seems to show it through. And in fact I did use it on this kraftboard and it showed through slightly on the bumpers, so you might want to consider that when you're doing it. So I'm going to put this here first, right up to the edge, and then I'm going to push it over onto there, make that join and push it in to make sure it fits up like that. And I've got a piece that's slightly longer, so I'm going to trim that down a little bit. And make sure that fits inside there neatly. I'm going to have to push mine in and make it fit. Yours I've this is my sample and my tryout, and I've made yours about 1 millimetre wider so that it fits in slightly better than mine does, but nevertheless it'll still work. And I think that's too short again, so I'll cut another piece. And that one, will that work? Yes, that will work. So I'll do that. And I don't want to bore you with too much repetition, so I will just put that together. Like that off. And join up these other edges, and make sure that your pieces that you join with are narrow enough that they don't show over the edge here, which mine will, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And that looks right. So I'm going to do that one next. In fact, I'll put it on here, not on there, because it makes sense, then you need to get it in the right place. So, I don't know if you could see what I did there. Anyway, I cut it down a bit narrower so that it didn't show over the edge here, and I'm just joining those two pieces there. And again, I'm just trimming it down where it's slightly too long. Don't forget, these pieces are all going to be covered by the wood grain. You wouldn't have to, actually, if you didn't want to, but then all your joining strips are going to show, and I think it looks a little better where it's covered. But it's more or less the same colour, and you could leave it if you wanted to simplify it and not put covering pieces on it at all. I would probably then use ink to distress it and make these pieces join in a little better. And that one, glue, I think that's it. Press that down. Make sure you press everything until it all adheres properly, which I didn't do very well there, but I'll come back to it. So I'm going to go and do the same on the inside of that one, on the outside of that one, and the inside of that one, and come back to you because I don't want to bore you while I do that. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so here I am back again. I have put these construction strips on the inside and outside of every join, all around these edges, and on the inside edges, and down this way and this way, so everything is completely covered and joined. You have to, I haven't done this last piece and I'll show you why. This piece, because of it's got the wheel part, you need to cut that and put a separate piece on either side of it, because obviously you can't put it round the wheel. So I'm just going to I've just cut a piece and I'm just going to stick it on. Actually that's a bit narrower than the other one, so let's do, as I say, my strips are not quite so regulated as yours. Let's cut this one down and push it up to there and cut this about here and glue that on, that last piece there, just there, see? So I'll do that. And then that whole truck bed is finished as far as putting it together is concerned. And just looking at that piece, try not to let your pieces come over any wider than where the gaps are in the construction. And mine did a little bit there, and I will trim that away slightly, which you can do before you adhere your papers. And that's the next thing I'm going to do. So I've put one on the back already, as I already mentioned to you, and now I'm going to stick them on the sides. Make sure you get them the right way round, and line them up as carefully as you can so that they're covering it, and glue those on. So I'm going to do that on both the inside and the outside, except for this end piece, and you'll see why in a moment. So, although I might, anyway, I'll do that and I'll show you. So I'm going to do that and come back to you. Okay, I'm back again, and it's now all stuck together. Actually, I had a bit of a problem, which I'll tell you about, because you may encounter the same thing. But I put this piece on the wrong way round. It matters more for me because I made the holes that are in these after, it was an afterthought, and I used my crocodile to do it with, but I've now included the holes, which you'll see what we're going to use them for in a minute, in the pattern, so they may be a bit more regular placed. But what you've got to do is make sure that your holes line up with the holes on the cab before you stick this piece on the end, which I didn't, and I had to remove it, which wasn't easy, and put it all back on again. So there it is. As I said, you don't need to put any wood paper on the inside if you don't want to, or on the outside if it comes to that, or you could paint this, or you could just distress it a bit like I have the inside of here. But I'm going to put my wood pieces on, and I'll show you. You'll find the ones on the inside probably need to be cut down just a tiny bit, and I mean really tiny bit, this sort of size down the edges, because obviously when they're inside and we've got the depth of the materials, it makes these, because they're exactly the same size as the outside, it makes them a bit too big. Actually, I've missed a piece here which I've got to put on before we go any further, so I'll do that. I don't think I've got one that's quite the right size here, so I'll make one quickly. That's right, let me just check. Well, that's not quite right either. Let me try again. Just to let you know, when you make little mistakes here and there, you're not the only one, so do I. So, you know, more haste, less speed, that sort of thing really. Just take care as you go along that you've got everything in the right place. And there's an order to putting these things together. You'll find if you don't put them together in a certain order, you'll think, oh, I can't do that part now because I've already put this part in place. So you've got to think about it. So you don't want to put any of your cover pieces on until you've put everything together. and so on, and especially when you come to the cab and the windows and putting those together, you've got to think about which is going to make it easiest for you to get into where you need to put the pieces together. And you'll come across some of that in a minute when I come to the cab and show you what we're doing. So I'll just quickly put that piece down here. I've lost where it is. Here we are. There we are. And I'm going to trim that down a little bit so it doesn't show over the edges. I do like these Tim Holtz scissors, by the way, both the long ones and the short ones. They're easy to use and they're strong and will cut heavier things, and they're just very precise, and they're my favourites. So I'm just trimming that down to make that so that doesn't show over the edges as well. Right, I think we're ready to go to the next part. So I already trimmed a little tiny piece off this one. Make sure that glue's stuck, and I'm going to put that in there, and I'll do it this way. I'm using this art glitter glue again. It's very good for fine lines. I don't very often use the fine tips. I have done in the past and they get clogged so easily. I usually find it's fine enough for most things with its natural tip that comes with it when you buy it. I spend so much time unclogging those uncloggable tips of various kinds, and the glue just won't come out, so I generally use it as it is. And so there we go, it goes on the inside there. And push that down, make sure everything's lined up, which this is not. Let's try again. And then just make sure that it's all, just let you see what I'm doing, make sure that it all matches up nicely, and move it while the glue's still wet if you need to, and check on the outside actually. And then I've done this on a lot of this card as I've gone along, but I haven't told you about it. But I am, that's the black one, I don't want that. Yes, no, that's the brown one. This is the Tim Holtz Distress Ink Walnut Stain. And on the joins and on the edges, I'm inking a little bit to make it all work together. And so that the joins are not so obvious and the white edges of the paper and so on don't show. And that's it so far. So I'm going to pause you a minute and put the last couple of pieces in, and I'm going to come back and talk about the cab and this part together. So just a second. So Dan has cut those dowels for me, and we've stuck some wheels on over here, but we're leaving them to dry with the E6000. We just put some E6000 in the hole, and we leave the first two to dry, and then we'll put them through the truck and we'll put the other one on. But we're not going to do that just at the moment because E6000 takes a long time to dry. So I forgot to show you how I actually put the wheels together. There are two pieces with holes in and one piece that's flat, and we're going to stick the two pieces together with the holes in first. Make sure those holes line up properly. Well, but then if you've got the wheels in the right place, they will anyway. And then the flat piece on the top. to push that on. And then on top of that goes the hubcap, which I already showed you. It's debossed and it says MF in the middle. That's just because I chose to call mine Maggie's Farm on my notice, and that was just inspired by Dylan's song. You could call it anything. You could put your own name, you could put your own last name, farm, or put anything you wanted to on there, but that's what I chose to put. And so I'm going to stick the hubcap, and you just need to be very careful when you put it on that you line it up as central as possible. It's really a bit oversized for a real hubcap, but I wanted to have plenty of space for the debossing and for it to show up properly afterwards. And you may not be able to see this on film, but I'll do some close-up photographs when the product's finished so you can see those, but I'll give you one more. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll turn it to the light a bit. I don't know if you can see, but anyway, that's what that. So that's the fourth wheel there. This is the Radiator Grill. Is that what you call it, Dan? Yes, he's nodding, that's fine. And I doubled that up as well. And it's a slightly different shape to the Christmas truck. I decided to have a taller one. And then here's the bumpers. Again, two pieces stuck on top of each other to give them a bit of weight. And I've gently bent these. You could use something like this, an embossing, a big ball embossing tool. I wanted it not to be completely flat, so I gently bent them around my finger, but as I say, you could put them on a spongy thing and emboss in there if you wanted to, just to make them not quite flat, a little bit more realistic. And that's those. And I'm sticking these pieces on. These cover all those parts of the tape we put on earlier, and they just bend over. That one goes there. I don't want to put too much weight on that because I want to squash these wheel parts, but just to show you. So, and the windows and doors and things are the last things to go on. So, make sure that's well covered. And as close to the edge as you can without putting it so that it's going to squeeze out too much. Especially around the window part, you don't want. And that goes that way. No, it doesn't. It goes this way. And I'm going to put the window part on first to make sure that's lined up properly. Like that. And then curl this round and make sure it's about equal from each side, and hold that in place until it sticks down firmly. And I think this glossy card looks really nice. I quite like gloss paint on a car, or truck in this case. So he's got rather an old wooden bed to it, but he's obviously had his truck painted up recently, and it's nice and smart. Probably had it done for fall. Dan's laughing at me. Stop it or I'll be laughing all the time. And these girls, probably mostly girls, I mean, I'm not saying just women make these things, but they know what I mean. They like it to look nice and shiny and clean. And then we're going to stick the bonnet, I'm going to say for England, the hood on here. Again, make sure the longer piece is at the top and the shorter piece is at the bottom. Gently bend it round, trim the paper or cardstock round so where those score lines are, and put that in place. It's going to look really good, I think. So let's put this on next. And you might want to take a bit longer than I am to make sure everything's stuck down properly. And we have to go out around it afterwards and stick any pieces that move. I wanted to show you. So push that up to the windshield, centre it, and then bring it round and hold it down until it sticks. And it's better to have a neat edge here than down here because you're going to put the bumper on there, so if there were any little pieces that don't quite match up, it's not going to show because the bumper will be there. So like that. This glue does stick quite quickly, but this is quite bendy, stiff paper and it might raise up, so you want to make sure everything's stuck down nicely. It's looking pretty good, don't you think? I do. And Dan's nodding, he likes it. And then we're going to stick the windows on. I'll do the back one first with the little saying on it and line it up when there. And I'm going to, again, don't forget that glue on acetate tends to move around a bit, so I'm putting it right near the outer edge so that it doesn't come onto the actual window too much. And if you do like me, you glooped it a bit, spread it out a bit with your finger. Got any tissues there? Yeah, I think we have down over there. Spread it out so that it's not going to spread on the window too much. And I'll just wipe that off, thank you. It's nice having an assistant, I can tell you. And I'm going to put this window on here, make sure that it's in the right place. And it might slide around a bit because of the acetate, so you might want to hold it until you're happy it's in the right place. Wipe off any screw. It's definitely slippery. So another thing you could do is tie it up this way until it dries. And if there's excess glue, wipe it off now while it's still wet. Oops. It does slide. I'll warn you that, finding that out. And look down and make sure that it's all in exactly the right place, because it's cut exactly to size. And leave that to dry, probably not standing up but flat till it wants to. And you'll need to do the same with all the other windows, so I'm not going to stick those on while you're watching, because they'll be sliding around all over the place while they're drying, and we don't want that. So I'm going to let that one dry first, and then I'm going to put the others on afterwards. It's still sliding. I know it will stick on there eventually. That's about right. And the doors, make sure you get them the right way round. For instance, this one will go here because you need the, no, the other one. Dan says, oh, have I got them on the wrong place? Yes, I have. I got one of the handles on the wrong place. So this is the one for the other side, and I'm going to have to move that and do something with that, but I should have done them opposite ways round, and I didn't. I've stuck them both the same way round, and I don't know if I can get that off without making a mess, so I might have to redo that piece of wooden wood grain and move that over. But that's the sort of thing that we all do, so you can see I do it too. But one of these is right and one of these needs redoing, and I'll sort that out later. But yeah, the door handle needs to go that way round. And so that one's right for that. Dad's laughing over there, I don't know why, but anyway, I'll sort that out later. I will carefully remove these pieces, put another piece of wood grain paper under there, and stick them back on. And you'll, when you see the final thing, that'll all be magically in the right place. So don't do that, because I just did it. These are the things we all do. Unless you're smarter than me and you can tell your right and your left and everything else, which I'm really bad at. And then I'm going to put this on the back and hang it on that brad that I already put in place. I'm going to put the wheel arches on, but I'm going to wait for the wheels to dry before I show you that part, and I'll fix this door and come back to you. And there's another thing. Oh yes, perhaps Dan will hold that off screen for me for a bit while that dries. I bought some raffia to use as hay, and I started by cutting it into pieces, and I was going to lay them all in the cart. And then I decided that I would just loosen the string that's holding them all together, spread it out a bit, and put it all in as one piece, and put the pumpkins on top of it. I think I got this at Dollar Tree. I'm sure you can get it in various places like Walmart and so on, but I have a feeling this was just from Dollar Tree, and this is one pack of it. So you can find something like that and put it in, and I'll show you that in the cart later. Truck, we'll call it a truck. So I'm going to say goodbye again for a little while, and I'll come back to you when all those things are sorted out and show you what the final, and show you how to put the wheel arches on, or whatever you call these, fenders, I forgot, you're nodding. I'll show you how to place those once you've got the wheels in place, but my wheels need to dry. And also, of course, there's the headlights, I forgot to tell you about those. I cut out some, I think this is brushed cardstock or paper they call it. It's Cricut again. I rather liked the one that was slightly coppery colour. I had silver on my previous truck, but because this is an autumn truck and it's got these orangey colours on it, I'm going to put those. And there's the, I use these little jewel things from, they're from Hobby Lobby. They come in a big pack like that, and that's what I use for the headlights. And I use a smaller red one for the tail lights, and I can't find them. I know I have some. I may have to go and get some more, and I have a feeling they were from Michael's that fit on this size. So you need a red one for the back and a clear one for the front. So again, I've got them in 2 layers just to give it a bit more weight, and I just stick that on there. And so I'll be doing that as well. You don't need to see me do that. And I'll come back to you and with all the finishing parts, the very last parts, when the wheels have dried properly and when the windows have stuck down properly too. So we've got it nearly all together now. The wheels are on, they're quite firm. However, I do think that if you did thicker wheels with more pieces with the hole in before you put the glue in, that it probably would make them more solid. And I put an extra layer for you for both the fenders and the wheel to use if you want to, and a different strip for this part. Where are we? Here we are. But bear in mind that this strip may not fit your card if you're using a different, your fender as I say, if you're using a different kind of board or chipboard or something than I am. So you may need to adjust those anyway. But you could make these wheels as thick as you like, and the thicker they are and the more you push onto the dowel before you put, when you've put the glue in the hole, the firmer they're going to be. So you might want to consider that. These seem okay and I'm sure they're going to hold up, but I'm just pointing that out to you so that you've got that option if you want to. So there's finally, I'm going to stick this one on to show you how I did it, and I'll bring it round here so you can see. So I put glue on this part, and I'm going to stick it onto the body of the car, just above the wheel, just allowing a little space between the wheel and the wheel arch, is what I'm going to call it. And there you are. Just leave that to stick for a little while, and I think they look pretty smart. So I'm also going to show you what I did with the bumper. As I say, I already bent it just a little bit, and what I did, I got some of my board, my mat board, artboard stuff. I had some scraps and I cut some little pieces like this size, and I just stuck some together so that I can raise the bumper away from the vehicle, and I'll show you in a second. So I'm just going to stick these 4 together just to show you. I had 4 for the front, I actually used 4 for the back, and I actually used 5 for the front because it had the radiator grill there, and I just thought perhaps it needed a little bit more clearance space. So I'm sticking those together. You don't have to be too precise with these, I just chop them up by hand, and they're just going to raise the bumper here, and I'm not going to put it on its wheels just now because I'm letting that wheel arch dry. Just check that that's going okay. But I'm going to put these across the back, so I'm just checking you can see that. I'll turn it a little bit more towards the camera, and I'm going to stick one on this end, just inside and just above the bottom of the truck, and then I'm going to put one down the other end, and here, and I'm going to put one in the middle. The bumpers are never stuck directly onto a car, they always have sort of brackets to hold them on anyway, so we're going to do that. And is it roughly in the middle? Straight. I think that's about right. And then I'm going to put glue on each of those. Whoops. Not too much. It's not something you really want to do sideways. If I were you, I would do it at the end when you've already got your truck back on its wheels, but just to show you. And then I stick it on there, hold it in place for a little while. In fact, perhaps I can, no, I won't put it onto its front because I've got a bumper down there too and I don't want to squash that. So just hold them and make sure it's about equal. I'm going to look. I think it looks a bit more that way. That looks about right. Let me just look myself. Yep, that looks about right. And I'm just going to hold that for a second. And then I'm going to put all the pieces together and put the pumpkins and straw and everything in it, and I'm just going to come back to you and show you the whole thing complete in just a moment. Tidy up a little bit first. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, here we are with the finished truck. The wheels that have been debossed with a design to match the sign on the back for Maggie's Farm, and the doors with the pumpkins on them, and I've got the door handles the right way around now. I switched those while you were away. Here's the front. As you can see, I put the Radiator Grill and the bumper, which is also raised like the one I showed you at the back. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but anyway it is. And I've got the gems for the headlights, the ones I showed you earlier from Hobby Lobby, although I'm sure you can get similar things from other places, but you need to check the size of them. And the windscreen's in place, and then come round to the back, there's the Scarecrow and the pumpkins. I'll tip the pumpkins so you can see better, and a sign on the rear window that says Happy Fall, y'all. I'm sorry, that was a really bad attempt at an American accent. And the sign on the back, Maggie's Farm sign, you can change these, you can change those signs to whatever you want. That's just what I put on mine, because I'm kind of fond of Bob Dylan. And the rear bumper, there's no rear lights yet because I couldn't find the gems that were the right size amongst my gems. I know I have some somewhere. I think I'm going to have to go and get some more to make the rear lights. And that's just about it. So I'm pleased with it. I hope you like it. And I'll put some details in the description below to tell you what materials I used or where I got things from. And there's the Scarecrow. You can put it around whichever way you like. And that's it. So goodbye until my next project, which I'm sure is going to be a lot quicker than I've been so far this year.